Hello and welcome to News Centre. With me, Parikshit Luthra. Earlier this week, the Union Cabinet approved an employment-linked incentive scheme with a total outlay of roughly 1 lakh crore rupees. There are two parts to the scheme. Part A, which will target first-time employees. The scheme will offer 1 month EPF wage up to rupees 15,000 in 2 installments. Employees earning up to rupees 1 lakh per annum would be eligible. This is expected to benefit around 1.92 crore first-time employees. The second scheme will incentivize employers up to rupees 3,000 per month for 2 years for each additional employee hired with sustained employment for at least 6 months. How will this help India's employment generation? Joining us to talk about the government's push for more employment generation is Ms. Vandana Gurnani, Secretary, Labour and Employment. Ms. Gurnani, thank you very much for joining us. First of all, could you give us a sense of the timeline? Because a lot of people in the industry would want to know when this is implemented. So could you give us some clarity on that?
Thanks, Parikshit. So that's a very important question. The scheme will commence from 1st August this year itself. So any new employment that is generated after 1st August is something that would be eligible for incentives under this scheme. The first 2 years is basically the registration period. So it commences on 1st August this year and the registration or the enrollment goes on till July of 2027. So whatever employment, additional employment over and above the baseline that gets generated during this period of 2 years would be eligible for incentives under the scheme.
Right. I would also like to ask you specifically about Scheme A first. What are the kind of sectors where you want to encourage more first-time employees to join the workforce?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. This entire scheme, especially the Part A, is focused on first-time joinees because that is where the hiring costs are higher and the scheme can have an impact on the marginal cost of hiring from the employer's perspective. But for employees, it is something that will help them, cover the costs of searching for jobs, transportation, housing, etc. Also provides them, social security, financial literacy, and the benefits of enrolling in the social security, which gives them insurance and pension. So, in terms of sectors, I would say it is a very broad-based scheme. It is applicable to all sectors. There is, I would say, an additional incentive, a longer incentive for the manufacturing sector to give a special boost to that particular sector. So all sectors would be eligible for incentive for 2 years after the employment is generated. However, manufacturing sector would have an additional 2 years. It would be eligible for incentives for 4 years. So that is a specific push in some sense in the scheme for a longer duration incentive to manufacturing. It is also expected that a lot of labor-intensive sectors should benefit from it. The MSME sector, the textile sector, the IT and electronic sector, the food processing sector, that is an expectation that one has. But in terms of the design of the scheme, it is completely agnostic to the sectors. It's a very broad-based scheme.
Right. Again, Scheme A is only aimed at giving incentives to the employees itself and through DBT transfers. Is that correct, ma'am? Only for the employees, not for employers?
Yeah. Scheme A is only for the employees. It gives incentive to the first-time joinees and it is through the Aadhaar-linked bank accounts of the people who would be employed. So yes, it is correct that it is only for the employees.
Now, when it comes to Scheme B, ma'am, the Scheme B will provide rupees 3,000 per month for 2 years for a minimum of 2 additional employees hired by a company which has a strength of less than 50 people. And companies with over 50 people will have to hire at least 5 new employees on a sustained basis for 6 months. Now, what does this mean in terms of the number of employees that a company needs to hire per month or in a year?
There is no such per month or per year targeting. As you rightly said, any company which has less than 50 employees has to hire 2 additional employees. So over the baseline of employment that they currently have, just 2 more people hired makes them eligible for the incentive. And if they hire 10 people, 15 people, 100 people, they get incentive for all of them. Similarly, for companies which have more than 50 employees, they have to hire 5 additional employees. So there is no such per month or per annum target that is there. There is only a threshold that 2 employees for a less than 50 employee company and 5 employees for a less than for a more than 50 employee company. The objective is that it has to be additional employment, and the second objective is sustained employment. So the other criteria is that these employees should be there for at least 6 months for the benefit to flow, which is basically to ensure that there is sustained employment, there is skilling that happens, there is productivity increase that happens during this period, because current data that we have from EPFO shows that almost 45% attrition takes place in the first 6 months. So the objective of the scheme is to make sure that there is a sustained employment, and therefore the incentive comes in after 6 months of retention in that employment.
And I'm assuming, ma'am, the companies which want to avail of these incentives will have to apply for the government scheme. Would that be correct? And would you know how many companies are right now interested in this scheme?
See, there is, first of all, I'd like to clarify one thing, that it's a very simple scheme. And the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister was to keep it procedurally also very simple and design-wise also very simple. So nobody has to really apply for the scheme. Companies are already on the EPFO database. The ones which are not, which can come on the database, it is a very simple process for that. For companies which are already on the EPFO database, all they need to do is provide the GST number, provide their PAN-linked bank account number, because the incentive is going to flow into the PAN-linked bank account number. So that's all that is required for them. They have to also kind of, it's a very simple 3-4 field kind of a screen that will come on the EPFO website, which they have to fill up. And in the end, they just have to say that, yes, they want to be part of the scheme. It's an acceptance. They just check that box and they are set to go. So there is no elaborate registration process.
And when it comes to Scheme A, ma'am, for first-time employees who get the incentives directly in their Aadhaar-linked bank accounts, in that case, do these employees who are going to be the prospective employees who are applying for a job, will they have to apply for the incentive themselves?
No, there is again no application process. They have to be registered on EPFO database, and they have to just do, for that they just have to do a biometric authentication. We are only insisting on face authentication because that's the latest biometric that is available, and that also can be done through a very simple app called Umang. So again, there are no forms to be filled out, there is no long procedure, just face authentication, or that is a biometric authentication on the EPFO website, and then they will become part of the scheme and will be eligible for the incentive.
This is very important, ma'am. So you're saying anyone who's entering the formal employment or any company who's hiring new workforce can automatically avail of these incentives. You don't have to do anything extra apart from what you already have.
Yes, so as I said, for companies, just the details of GSTN and the PAN-linked bank account. For the employee, face authentication and an Aadhaar-linked bank account. That's all they need to give. There are no detailed forms that they have to fill out. With this, once they are on the EPFO database, they would be eligible for the scheme. And one of the objectives of the scheme is also formalization in Social Security. Once they come on EPFO, they become automatically formal workers.
Right. What would be some of the long-term objectives, ma'am? You said employment generation, social security, some comfort to first-time employees who are joining the workforce. If you had to give us a sense of the vision of the government and what you seek to achieve with this.
So see, I would largely put the objectives in 3 buckets. Employment generation, that is the first very objective. Employability, which I had not spoken about earlier, because this scheme, once people actually get into the job market, because there is some amount of difficulty or resistance in taking the new joinees, but with the impetus of this scheme, once people get into the job market, and if they stay for 6 months, because as I said, the focus is on sustained employment, they acquire very valuable skills, and then these skills can go across various other companies, other sectors, other industries. So we are hoping that through this retention process, it will improve the skilling, the productivity, and therefore the longer term employment. So it's trying to break that initial kind of a block for the fresh joinees to get into the employment itself. And once that is broken, it would sustain through skilling and productivity increases. And the third, as I had mentioned, was formalization, so that people get into the formal workforce, because currently in the country we have only about 12 to 15% of our workers in the formal workforce. With this, we hope that more and more people, especially the youth, will get into the formal workforce and have the benefits of long-term benefits of social security that includes pension and provident fund and insurance.
Ms. Gurnani, one more question that we'd like to ask you is to how do you make sure that people are not committing frauds or claiming incentives for employees who were already there in companies?
So that's a very important question, because risk mitigation strategies are an important part of this entire effort. So for that, one is that the EPFO system has a very strong IT backbone to make sure that these frauds don't happen, and then there are algorithms to detect if things do not go right. Secondly, what is important is that the monies will go only into the Aadhaar linked bank account of an employee through the Aadhaar bridge payment system, and for the employer it would go through the PAN linked, go to the PAN linked bank account. So this is another risk mitigation strategy that we have. Also, as I had mentioned about sustained employment, so in the scheme the benefit actually flows after 6 months of an employee being part of an organization or an enterprise, because that will ensure that it's not a company which suddenly springs up, or it is not fake people who are there. For 6 months, the employer and employee have to contribute, give their contribution to EPFO. The companies have to file the electronic challan cum receipt, which they normally file for all employees. They'll have to file for the additional employees also. And once that 6 month period is over, then the incentive flows to the employer and the employee. So these are some risk mitigation measures that have been put in place to ensure that the benefits actually flow to the right people, the deserving people, and that there is no misuse or fraud in the scheme.
Right. Also, to ask you about the internship scheme, there have been some reports which are quoting sources which say that the internship scheme may be merged into the employee-linked incentive scheme. Is there some thinking around that, ma'am, currently?
I think what I would say is that there is certainly a discussion which has happened, and more discussions will happen in terms of seeing how those two initiatives link better, so that people who are getting the benefit of the internship scheme ultimately also get the benefit of employment. So those kind of discussions are very much underway.
Right. Finally, ma'am, I would like to ask you about how to meet the skill gap in the country. Everyone is looking at India as an alternative source of manufacturing, but there is a feeling also that there is a skill gap, especially in areas which need cutting-edge technology. Now, just to take the example of what's happened with Foxconn, with China pulling out their workers for geopolitical reasons. And there are multiple reasons. For the last few months, we've seen how China has stopped rare earth magnets to India, electronic components, fertilizers. Now we're seeing their own workers being pulled out of factories. This impacts us and our manufacturing as well. How do you think we address this situation in the long term?
So I'd like to just kind of remind ourselves that there is this whole package for a boost to employment, and there are several parts to it. You mentioned the internship scheme. We just spoke about the ELI scheme, but we also had a very recent decision of the policy decision of the Union Cabinet on the scheme for upgradation of ITIs, as well as setting up 5 centers of excellence. So it's an entire package which is looking at all aspects of employment, and there is also a discussion which we are having with the Ministry of Skill Development on how we kind of dovetail both the ELI initiative as well as what is happening through its various initiatives for skill upgradation, including the most recent one where several ITIs across the country would be upgraded, as well as centers of excellence would be set up. So that's going to effectively bridge the skill gap and meet the demand of the industry and help the industry to grow further, as you had mentioned before.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us with your perspective, giving us your overview on how the employment-linked incentive scheme is going to work.
Thank you, Parikshit.
All right, that's all the time we had on this special broadcast. Thank you for watching and goodbye.